Well. It's Saturday, February 3rd. It's noon Eastern time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time for my weekly Ask Me Anything live stream. Before we get to that, FootballGuys.com is the website. Appreciate you joining me here every Saturday at this time. Also on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Sorry I missed last week. We'll try to rectify that this week for our On the Hot Seat live streams. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I missed. It was a mock draft, and I'm going to use that mock draft to have a little bit of a conversation today. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that good stuff. If you've completed those YouTube-ish tasks, do me the honor of liking or disliking me if you see fit. Would appreciate that. Also, Super Bowl, 8 days hence. We're 8 days away from Super Bowl 58. There's an injury report out for what that's worth. Always appreciate it when they do that. By the way, good morning. Appreciate you coming, Ty. Nice to see you. Oh, look there. You have me at Football Guys. You have Football Guys has me over the moon. Also makes me want to share its existence even less. So we run into that a little bit, everyone. Hi, Andrea. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you showing up. It's like the off week. I don't know if anyone's got better things to do. Probably so, but I don't. So here I am. And I talked about that mock draft I did on Wednesday night. And I hope everything, tough run up to the playoffs. I hope everyone's doing well, if their teams got knocked out of the playoffs. And, and if you're a Niners and you're a Niners fan or a Chiefs fan, congratulations to you. We'll talk a little bit about that before I get into the topic of the day. And the topic of the day is going to be uncertainty, right? Because well, it's February. It's the first week of February, and we're out there drafting, and it just struck me, and some of the headlines I'll touch on here, kind of reminded me there's a lot of uncertainty as we head into the season, and it's good to set the table. And I think the drafting this week, Wednesday did a mock draft with the Sirius XM hosts. I'm in another one right now with the NFL, NFL.com, NFL Network crew. Michael F. Florio, Marcus Grant, Laquan Jones, Michelle Majuk, amongst others. Jeff Erickson's in there as well, and we're doing a draft. My name on that draft was Team 8. That's our program director's name. That's J Mount, I think is how he spells it up. Hey, Wendy, really good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Always appreciate your support and friendship. But yeah, so we had to set it up that way because he had to have commissioner rules, so he has to share a team with somebody. Then once you get into Sleeper, there's some Love Sleeper is a great app, but there's a little bit of weirdness if you're trying to do some of these things for display or promotional reasons, or you have somebody running a league that's not in the league. It can get a little tricky, and we've run into this a couple times. So we work our way through it, and that's how it was. So I am Team 8 in this draft. If you were not aware, that draft show, if you have Sirius, is going to be on again tomorrow, Sunday at 3 p.m. So you should listen to that. By the way, Ty mentioned it, Football Guys, a lot of good work up there. I've been posting articles there, doing some, instant reaction to news, and also my in and outs for each game. There's no in and out this week. Next week for the Super Bowl, it's like all in, right? I mean, who can you be out on in a one-game slate? Everyone merits consideration, and so I'll give them that consideration. That'll be out probably late next week, like Thursday-ish or so. Good morning, Mr. Scamper. So nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate y'all hang out. I do think, I was sitting here going, what the hell am I going to talk about? I mean, there's nothing really going on. There's the injury report. We'll get to that. Let's knock that out right away because it doesn't matter. Sky Moore's list is questionable. Isaiah Pacheco, George Kittle, not on the injury report. Chris Jones, not on the injury report, but all of them have been limited. I want to say George Kittle said, don't worry about it. It's a toe injury. That's been the predominant theme coming out of Niners headquarters is not to worry about it. Why would we worry about it? It's the off week. Of course, we're not going to worry about it. We'll worry about it this week if we get a chance, and we probably will. Morning, Royal. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everyone showing up. Again, I have no idea who's what y'all got going on. I'm going to sit here and chat. So here's the first thing. I need to figure out screen sharing in this here environment, and I did not. So I'm going to have to talk about that draft. I'm going to go ahead and try and put the link to the draft in the chat, and hopefully that will work. I might have to change how I'm logged in. We'll see. Let me give that a try. It was an interesting draft, and I think for me, it's two things. It reminds me of a couple things. And one of those things is, and I put that link in there if you could hit it. If you have trouble hitting it, let me know, and I'll log in as the administrator of the site. Maybe that works a little better. But if you can see it, that'll take you to the draft page. But it just reminded me of how much we're drafting, based on how do you draft in February or the last week of January? There's a lot of stuff we don't know. And I brought up, just in the last couple of days, some of the headlines that I've been looking at, right? Let's start with this. Derrick Henry said, "We'll see what happens," when asked about a potential to return to the Titans this season. Well, I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent, and said his goodbyes. The widespread belief has been that he's not going to stick around. I think that's still like my default position. But Brian Callahan, the new head coach there, maybe that changes the dynamic. They're bringing in a great offensive line coach who happens to be Brian Callahan's dad, Bill Callahan, from the Browns, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. So it's interesting that maybe there will be change, maybe there won't, but it highlights that what's going on. Stephon Diggs, talking yesterday, told a couple different reporters, I can't tell you what the future holds, when he discussed his future in Buffalo, right? Like, we think he's going to be back. Okay, maybe not. Keenan Allen absolutely believes he'll be with the Chargers in 2024. I don't see myself going anywhere, he said. Well, the money might say otherwise, and that's going to be an overriding theme here. An overarching theme is the money is going to talk on these situations, and so we'll figure those out. But there were some others too that struck me. Justin Fields' future in Chicago. I don't know what it is. The more I talk to people out there who pay attention to the rookies, I know it's Senior Bowl week. I am not a draftnik, people. Never pretended to be, will not pretend to be. I'll have plenty of them on, and we'll get the rookies sorted out long before we need to have them sorted out. And that includes me in a league, Scott Barrett's DVF league, where we draft, a dynasty league where we draft. Our rookie draft is before the NFL draft, right? So I have to have some knowledge. So we'll get up to speed. We'll have people like Matt Waldman, John Laub, among the many others, Jeff Bell, my colleague of Football Guys. So on here to discuss all the rookies and the impact. Mike Fiella, he has good knowledge of that. So we'll have plenty of people on. But that Justin Fields, we don't know where the hell he's going to play, right? Dave Kluge, my colleague at Football Guys, has a great article up about why the Bears should move on from Fields, or why he thinks they will. And you can find that on his Twitter feed at Dave Kluge, Kluge, and check that out. So a great article, by the way. Loved it. The Athletic, Jeff Howard reporting the Buccaneers are expected to pursue a contract extension with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield talked about this and kind of depends. Well, I think they're making good inroads. He thought it sounded like it might depend on the offensive coordinator, how that plays out. Seems like they're going after Liam Cohen, who was with the Rams when Baker Mayfield had his moment of success there. And so, but that's still, Mike Evans, a free agent as well. Tua Tagovailoa said he expects to sign a long-term deal extension with the Dolphins this offseason. I expect him to also, but will there be other changes there? Derek Carr expects to be restructured. That'll keep him in New Orleans for the next 2 years, because that's the only way they're going to spread this contract out enough. But the Saints are like 40+ million over the cap. They got a problem. The cap's gone way up, right? It's like 240 million this year. And they're still like 40 million over. They have huge issues. Russell Wilson is going to be unresolved. A lot of coaching situations that are going to leave things in flux. So we'll see how that goes. I'm watching the NFL, right? If you haven't noticed, many of you are here with me every Saturday during the NFL season. When I'm doing this, I'm doing radio. It's all NFL focused, right? I'm not watching college football. I'm not consuming that. So I listen to people I've learned to trust over the years who are, hey, Mel, nice to see you. I talk to people who are and who I trust. Matt Waldman being first and foremost among them, but many others. I mean, there's so many people out there. Derek Brown, super knowledgeable about the rookies. He's at the Senior Bowl right now. Ray Garvin out there chopping it up at the Senior Bowl. Some great minds. Thor, all these people that you've come to trust for that. I've come to trust too. Andrea knows Buffalo over the cap, right? That's going to be a thing for Stephon Diggs. I mean, what the heck, Stephon Diggs? Adding just that uncertainty from his comments, their cap issues from week 6 on creates a level of uncertainty that I'm not entirely comfortable with. And I think it's reflected in that draft. By the way, I put that link up in the draft. Were you all able to access that? Did you see it? Did it work? Can you see that draft? And again, I will get with my my technically minded colleagues, By the way, let me just shout out Eric Romoff at Fantasy Net. Eric Romoff sits here and busts his ass, helping me put this on every week for no other reason than he's helping me put this on. No other reason. Dude is fantastic. Helps me out with everything, graphics and whatnot. And at some point, he's going to help me screen share because I was pretending I could figure it out this morning and I could not. And I'm like, not tech unsavvy. I'm pretty good at this, actually. And I couldn't figure it out. Well, okay. Apparently, I'm not very good at this. Evidence to the contrary suggests. But anyway, so I think these situations. Eric is the best. Eric's fantastic. Just like truly good people. Everyone, look, that whole football diehards crew. This is the thing that is the toughest about all this. And by the way, I talked to Emil Kadlik for about an hour this week. He's dude is fighting. Really engaged in his treatment. Got into some detail, let me know how everything's going, and he is doing great. And if you get out there, if you have not seen the GoFundMe, it's in the highlights on my X feed. If you don't, if you've donated or can't donate to the GoFundMe that's there, share it. See if somebody else will. So that's still an ongoing thing. So appreciate all that. And of course, Matt Donnelly put on his great postseason tournament that's going to raise $2,000 more. So we appreciate that. But the whole Diehards crew, Evan Tarchiano, Jamie Calandro, Eric, John Lobb, Reginald James, and Gary Davenport, both nominated for Writers of the Year award from the FSWA and Article of the Year for Reginald. And also some of my football guys colleagues, Adam Harstead, also nominated there. The great Andrew Cooper. I love that guy too. Nominated as well. Hey, Kevin. Good to see you, man. Appreciate that. So the whole Diehards crew, and I know I'm leaving people out, and that's not my intention, but when you start speaking on the moment, but great, just such a great bunch of people. And some of them will be out there. It's a tough environment to find work. So, if anyone out there, has recommendations for them or whatever, it'd be very helpful. So there you have it. So let's talk a little bit about uncertainty. Let me know if you can see the link or if you could not see the link. If you can't, it's not like a huge deal. I mean, it's nice to see the entire board. I think it's on Twitter also. Let me see if it's on my Twitter feed, my X feed. Really now's the time to buy them before Burrow starts practicing again. Well, I'm going to talk about the Bengals here in a second. Because, I mean, I think, Andy, we're going to talk about the Bengals. Give me 1 minute there, Boofy. Andy Behrens was on your show this week, and he shouted me out. He's going to be on my show today to answer for all his shout-outs. Andy Behrens is great. Truly one of the elite, let me phrase it carefully, smack talkers. And that was not the word that first came to mind. Smack. Andy is like next level trash talking. Next level. Like just a low-key humor, just cuts right in. Love him. He'll be on the show today. Jody Smith from Full Time Fantasy will be on the show also. That'll be 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, people. I want to get back to this because I didn't forget you, Boofy. Do you think the Bengals will be key to winning fantasy next season? I feel like now is the time to buy them before Burrow starts practicing again. Probably so. In particular, Jamar Chase. So, spot on. Always count on Scampers to nail it. Sums it up nicely. Behrens is the best. And so the greatest Andy Behrens line ever. We were doing a draft and we just finished and we were all commenting on, just the draft in general. And Andy comes out with Bob Harris going with the unique no good player strategy. Zero good player strategy, like zero running back. Was awesome. Fantastic work by him. Also, I was rewatching our video from the expo where we're always on the panel that opens the whole thing. Andy and I have been doing that every year, and the panel's expanded, but we're still doing it. And we all, were asked to give our plant your flag players to start things out. Andy went all in on Sam Laporta. That is a ballsy maneuver, right? Rookie tight end. He planted his flag hard and really came out like a king, right? So. I planted my flag on Jahmyr Gibbs. We all know how that worked out. So there were some interesting flag plants. JJ Zachariason was all out on Najee Harris. It was fun rewatching that and seeing what people thought. Bacon or sausage? Both. I had both this morning. Both. But it was turkey sausage. Does that count, Rachel? I don't know. I don't know if that counts. I did watch by the way. I need to get with Carla and tell her. So Greg Kellogg said I got engaged like the other day. And so some people think I just got engaged. I've been engaged for like 3 years now. I was told the ring would buy me time. Personal stuff out of the way. Bacon or sausage out of the way. Let's get on to this draft. So I wanted to just talk about the levels of certainty for the initial players involved. Yes, it's Yard Guy Day. If you hear that noise in the background, that's what it is. It doesn't matter when I do something; they will show. They will show. Better the Donnie Marie Garden. Yes, that was a great story. I'm glad I didn't get a question like that because there are way too many of those stories to recount. So this draft, and again, if you can see the link that I put in the chat, scroll up. I'll pop it in again in case anyone just now showed up. Boom, there it is again. So if you want to look at that and follow along, because I do think it's interesting where we're sitting at it. This seems like a good platform to discuss the layers or levels of uncertainty with the various players involved. And first off the board was Christian McCaffrey. I think that he, to me, is the safest play here. I don't see a lot changing. So what are the possible changes? What are the possible changes? Here first, there was a question up here that I should probably get to for Ty, because it's not going to tie in. How Superflex PPR? How to value Justin Herbert? Tried to trade for him and Love for the 2024 for Love and the 2024 204. Owner declined for reasons other than fair value. What are your thoughts on Harbaugh's effects on Herbert's value? Well, I probably will get into this now that I'm looking at it, but I'll just touch on it now. I think that's a situation we're going to have to watch. Greg Roman being talked about as an offensive assistant. I think the widespread notion is he's going to show up as offensive coordinator. I don't know. I've heard people say he might be the run game coordinator, which would make sense because if he's the offensive coordinator, he's still pretty much the run game coordinator, right? That's kind of his lane. So, and it was a run heavy offense they ran that would make a difference if Saquon Barkley showed up there. Also, there's a running back he coached in college at Michigan that a lot of people talking about might be a second round pick. A lot of people talking about the tight end is the 5th pick overall would be interesting as well, and that makes perfect sense too. So I think the one mock I saw had, and of course I'm talking about Brock Bowers, the tight end, but the mock draft I saw had Caleb Williams going to the Bears, Drake May going to Washington, Jaden Daniels to the Patriots, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals, Bowers to the Chargers, which would make sense, right? Like the tight end, Vernon Davis was Harbaugh's tight end in San Francisco. So that kind of makes sense as well. So it is interesting to see how some of these things will play out. But I think the running back class is a little bit thinner, right? So Blake Corum from Michigan is a guy people have talked about a little bit because of the connection with Harbaugh. I don't know if that'll hold up. But anyway, I think the issue with Herbert's value for me is I don't know if I'm going to be trading for him right now. I think the talent's all there. The question is how much does Jim Harbaugh adjust his approach to meet his talent, right? Because I think if I might try to trade for him too on the belief that based on the past of Harbaugh. Maybe Harbaugh is smart enough to know it. When he talked about it in his opening press conference, he talked nothing about limiting Justin Herbert. He talked about him being his best player, and he wanted to maximize his abilities. Well, if you're going to do that, you're going to be throwing the ball. That would probably mean keeping Keenan Allen. That would mean getting Mike Williams back in the mix. That would mean teaching Quentin Johnston how to catch the football. Shade thrown. I don't know if I would. I don't know that I would do that deal. Like if you offered that to me, if you tried to trade him if I had Love in the 204, I might keep Love in the 204, honestly, depending on who my other quarterbacks were or what the options are at quarterback. I could see the argument for doing that time. So I think the value there is going to remain uncertain, and that's the topic of today's show. So it is good you asked that. And I don't know if I would have gotten, because Herbert went down a little lower in the draft, not too low. Right, like I thought it was interesting. I thought he went maybe a little higher than I was going to take him. I would have taken. So if you could see that draft, it was the 6th round. We had a little run on quarterbacks. We started out with Josh Allen in round 4. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts went in round 5. Patrick Mahomes started round 6-1. I thought that was a little aggressive, honestly. Joe Burrow next. Justin Herbert then was the next quarterback off the board ahead of C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, the quarterback I wanted to draft. All of them ahead of Justin Fields. I think that goes to the uncertainty. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I think that's, I think that's a great starting point, right? To kind of figure out, how we start approaching, or what we need to be thinking about as we head into this offseason. What kind of things are we going to be watching for? So I started out with pick 1-1, McCaffrey. This is a no-brainer. I think he's still there. I think the quarterback situation remains unchanged. Although if something was going to change, me and Dempsey have been talking about it on the Diehards radio program. Is it possible if Brock Purdy, because there's not a huge investment in it? Look, they made a huge investment in Trey Lance and moved off him pretty damn quick once it became apparent that it was time to move off him. Right. So that was like, think of all the draft capital they invested there, and the draft capital versus draft capital invested in Purdy. It was interesting that Jay York came out this week and talked a little bit about Kyle Shanahan telling him back, last offseason that, our third quarterback might be better than our first two, and that he's going to play at some point. Shanahan knew. But anyway, I don't think that's a level of uncertainty that would keep me from drafting. I don't think there's anything that would keep me from drafting. If I viewed Christian McCaffrey as the 1-1, I would draft him there and feel really confident that the role, his ability to fill the role, that the offense is going to be robust, all those things I would continue to, I think he's like 0% uncertainty, or as close to it as you can. Obviously, there is no such thing as 0% uncertainty, but as close to it as it can come. Justin Jefferson was the second pick. There is a little uncertainty there, right? I mean, and I could probably overlook it. Justin Jefferson is good enough that I could overlook the fact that I'm not 100% sure who his quarterback's going to be. I've told myself a happy story. That's what we do in draft season, right? We tell ourselves things that we think are going to be true and hope they do come true. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be back. I drafted him, by the way, in the 10th round of this draft as my quarterback one after I missed out on Anthony Richardson. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Kirk Cousins is the uncertainty there, right? Is he going to be back? We don't know. Sounds like he might be willing to give a little bit of a hometown discount. I would love to see that. A couple of years, $90 million. That would be a discount in today's market. Would he do that? Sure. I mean, he's made a lot of money, people. Nobody has played the franchise tag, the tag game, better than Kirk Cousins, right? He's set pretty well. I mean, you could always be set better, but if he wanted to keep the ball rolling there, and I think, ideally that's how I see it playing out. But there are teams that need quarterbacks that will maybe have some say here. Maybe one of them would be San Francisco if Brock Purdy came up short, right? Again, I think that's like on the least likely end of things. But weird things happen after Super Bowls. Ask Jared Goff. If it doesn't go your way, how quickly things can go south. So there's that. And so that brings us up to Jamar Chase was the third pick in this draft. And I think for me, the only uncertainty, and I don't even view it as uncertainty, is in a negative way, is Joe Burrow's health. I mean, it sounds like he'll be on track and ready to roll. This will kind of get to your question then, Boofy. I think there's a level of certainty there that I think is really solid, right? By the way, Andrea's draft CMC. I don't know about Chase. So Chase to me is a pretty locked in. T. Higgins is the uncertain piece here. Let's assume that I'm going to work under the assumption that Joe Burrow's back and ready to roll and everything's going to be good. That's what I'm telling myself. But if there was some uncertainty there, we need to see that, right? I'm going to go ahead and throw that. Then the next level of uncertainty is, what's up with T. Higgins? Is T. Higgins going to be there? Will T. Higgins being gone diminish Jamar Chase, or will it add to what he's doing? Do they have other pieces there that can keep opposing defenses from focusing on him? I think they do. I mean, I think they have some good young receiving talent, and certainly they would probably add somebody. So I feel pretty comfortable with Jamar Chase. I think the uncertainty there of T. Higgins leaving doesn't worry me for Jamar Chase. So I feel pretty confident, in what his circumstances are, right? And I think he's been super high end. Andrea, I'd like to see in your comments what is it that worries you about Chase the most? I'd be interested in hearing that. Because I mean, I'm not if I was sitting there at 1-1 and my choices were between, they said you have to choose between Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase. It would be an easy McCaffrey for me, but that's because of the leverage over the field he gives me. And I don't know, there's a whole range of wide receivers right in that same spot. Maybe I wouldn't get any of those, but there seems like a broader range of receivers in that spot. You don't get that same leverage over the field that I see for McCaffrey. After McCaffrey, we had CeeDee Lamb. So McCaffrey, Jefferson, Chase, CeeDee Lamb. I don't see any uncertainty for CeeDee Lamb. I mean, unless you think they're going to do something weird with Kelly. I think there's nothing that would keep me, on the level of certainty. I think Lamb goes ahead of, for me, Jefferson and Chase. I think his situation is locked in. Tyreek Hill was next. We know he's going to retire at some point. We don't think it's going to be this year. I think you could make an argument for him being the first wide receiver off the board. I could make an argument for any of those four being the first wide receiver off the board. Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, or Hill. I think that's totally close enough. Personal preference situation, could go with any of them and feel pretty comfortable. By the way, I'm Bob Harris. If you just tuned in, hi, how are you? I'm from Football Guys. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. We're here every Saturday. Check it out. I'm on the radio every week. This week I think is our last week of 4 shows a week. Or no, is that next week? This week? I think it's this week. Right, so we're Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll also do the 3-hour pregame show before the Super Bowl. So 5 days this week. And then we'll go to once a week after that, our usual Saturday spot, which will be in the afternoon, 3 to 5 p.m., right after I do this. So you can double dose on me if you want, or if you can't catch both of them, you can catch the one you want. SiriusXM app is a new thing. You can use that as well. Also catch all my work at Football Guys. I would appreciate that. Chase is up and down. Consistency has been an issue for him. But I mean, at the, week-to-week consistency, I'll grant you that. I'm probably willing to overlook that for the upside, the high end. And so if I'm getting him and I feel like he's a little more volatile and he's not a steady Eddie, then I'm going to come back on my second pick, in the next round and look for one of those guys that evens that out, one of those really high floor guys. And I want to say, probably not going to see, let's say Keenan Allen stuck around, or there's uncertainty about him and he gets all the way back around to that spot in the draft. He would be the kind of player. That's the archetype I'd be looking for in that spot, right? Because you want that super steady every week high floor guy to help mitigate the risk of the ups and downs that maybe you see from Chase. Andrea, not drafting any Steelers. I think that's like, I'm not going that far, Andrea. I will draft any player at the right price. Every player at the right price. That is my motto. That's my motto. Every player at the right price. What is the right price, though? I mean, there's some of them are going to have to be cheaper. I'm going to admit, like, there's enough uncertainty in that quarterback situation, and the George Pickens volatility seems. I mean, look, he looks like a super skilled, great playmaking talent. Scampers. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there. Chris Boswell is a stud. He knows how to navigate those wins. But the running back situation, Arthur Smith in as the offensive coordinator, I feel better about that than probably a lot of people. I know Matt Harmon's been out there on the X machine suggesting the same. I think you guys need to look back at his work just as an offensive coordinator. He was pretty damn good. He's just not great at maximizing first round picks. Don't worry about that with the Steelers. No, I think he may do a better job. Just coordinating. History has said he's better as just a coordinator when it comes to offense than it is when he's a head coach. Although he had his moments as a head coach too. I'm not going to let the recency bias of his stunning failures to maximize the talent of his first round draft capital. But there we have it. Oh, Dave, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. So I get it. I get the up and down nature. I also get the Steelers. I get it. So every player at the right price. I think that gives me a lot of that. At the right price gives me a lot of wiggle room. That's how I like to say it. So Tyreek Hill also, Scampers be fine with Tyreek Hill. I think that's consistent and ridiculous. Exactly. So I think that's, that would be my argument for him. Like, look no further than last year, right? He was on pace for a record season until injuries kind of slowed him down a little bit. So I'm with you there. So I think of those, and I think in most universes that I would live in, those would probably be the top guys off the board: McCaffrey, Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, and Hill. Then we got in this draft to the 6th pick overall, and it was Bijan Robinson. There's a lot of uncertainty there. No uncertainty about his talent. None whatsoever. Guy's phenomenal. You would expect the next coach, Raheem Morris, comes in, as the head coach, but he brings Zach Robinson in as his offensive coordinator, formerly the Rams passing game coordinator. Got the most out of a kid named Puka Nacua. The Rams offense maximized the value of the running back position, not just last year, but dating back to the year before. And, the Sean McVay tree has made extensively great use of running backs over the course of time. So I mean, there's still uncertainty there because we haven't seen the full. We haven't gotten the full Bijan. But that's I think the only uncertainty there is in our minds. I don't think there's any lack of certainty in what the plan will be. Tyler Algier still looming, over the shoulder there. Those concerns might diminish a little bit as we get closer to the season, but there is a little bit of uncertainty there. I think that's early for him. I like Breece Hall as running back too. I picked him later in that first round. By the way, were y'all able to get to that link? Let me see. I keep asking and then I don't look for an answer. It's horrible of me. I hope you can see the link, and if not, I'll just call the players out as I get to them. Either way, so not a big deal until Eric Romoff can teach me how to screen share. That's the key here. So Bijan Robinson, followed by AJ Brown. Jeff Ratcliffe took AJ Brown. I think it's defensible pick. I mean, but there's uncertainty there. I think less uncertainty. The uncertainty that comes from the change of offensive coordinators, right, and the late season failures of that team to maximize their talent and to make great use of players like AJ Brown, right? So I do think there's some uncertainty there. If you're expecting a rebound to what we saw the first half of the season with AJ Brown, and it's not unreasonable to believe that there is no link. Damn it. I think I know how to fix that, people. Let me just see if I can do it real quick because I think it's worthwhile. Here we go. I did some magic. Let me see. Let's see if that worked. I just put it in again, and maybe that worked better because maybe I have to do it as football diehards. I said I was like technically proficient, clearly a lie, yet I am technically able to scrabble along. So there's the link to the draft, and again, I'll be screen sharing these in the future to make this a little easier. And I'll be doing some mock drafts with y'all. You know how I do it every year. So you see you can see now. So I think AJ Brown, Kellen Moore is going to be a great coordinator. He has been at every stop, right? So Dallas, Los Angeles last year, I thought he'd maximize the players there. Keenan Allen certainly fared well as wide receiver one. I have every reason to believe this offense is going to improve, but there's a little uncertainty there. Breece Hall up next. That was my pick at 8. I have him as my running back too. Happy to get him here. I think if you look at last year, the uncertainty was last year. The uncertainty was him coming off the ACL. There's less uncertainty this year. Do they need to improve their offensive line? Maybe a little bit. Breece Hall, like even without the most robust workload that or at least as robust a workload as I'd expect this year, still ranked 3rd in the league in yards after contact. That's his superpower, the big play. I'm willing to bet on that all the time. Is there levels of uncertainty with the Jets? Yes. There's the Aaron Rodgers. Will he be full speed? Sounds like it. Sounds like late in the season he was knocking them dead in the scout team circumstances, right? So he was lighting up the world on the scout team, playing against the first team defense, of course. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. But I think Breece Hall, and you're going to see Garrett Wilson also went in the first round of this draft, right? Tail end of the first round. And in the other draft I'm in, he's also in a very similar spot. So I think there's a couple pieces of that offense that people have a lot of confidence in, and I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think there's a lot of uncertainty about that, other than Aaron Rodgers. And I think based on what we saw at the end of the season, what we heard about his recovery, it's been phenomenal. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kendall Valenzuela took. That was my decision right there. It was a tough call between Breece Hall and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And, I think over the course of time, if I had that same pick to make 10 times, I'd almost 50-50 it. And the way it played out in the next round, maybe I wish I'd gone Amon-Ra St. Brown, honestly. And so that's going to be part of it as we go forward. This is the thing about these drafts. Why are you drafting this early and you're talking about all the uncertainty, Bob Harris? What the hell's the matter with you? Well, this is how you get there. This is how, there's a point late in this draft where I missed out on Bowers. I wanted a second tight end. I got Sam LaPorta in round 4. I thought it was great value, right? But I wanted to, make a sexy, splashy play and go with another rookie tight end and be a little ahead of the curve. And he went a few picks ahead of me. And I hadn't prepared myself to, mentally, because I haven't done enough drafts. So this is the key to successful drafting. is having done it enough so that when you get caught in a bind and you're caught in a moment, you get sniped, that pick, somebody pulls the rug out right in front of you. You don't sit there and go, and you don't sit there and make a crappy pick. Let's say you don't pick Jerry Jeudy, right? Like, oh, so many players I wish I would have taken over him. Dempsey taking Kyron over Gibbs is interesting. It's a close call for me. I do think Kyron's a great pick, but there's some uncertainty there. But is the uncertainty in our mind, or is it real uncertainty? I think that's what we're trying to get at here. There is uncertainty that's real uncertainty, and then there's just uncertainty that we're playing up. The uncertainty with Kyron Williams comes from the fact that Cam Akers was a league winner at the end of last season in this offense. He was phenomenal. He crushed it, right? He crushed it. He was a top 5 running back down the stretch. And then, there was obviously way more going on behind the scenes with Cam Akers than we realized. But here comes Kyron Williams, a previously failed satellite back, right? Like, came in as a rookie the year before and kind of was viewed that way. Clearly, the Rams didn't view him that way. Do the Rams have another piece there they view differently, or do they view Kyron Williams differently? I don't think so. I don't feel like there's a great deal of uncertainty surrounding Kyron Williams. So does the LA contingent. Scampers overboard. Chime in if you would. I mean, I feel pretty confident that Kyron Williams is going to have a similar role. Yes, there's coaching staff changes, and no, that doesn't matter. Sean McVay is the leader of this offense here. Only threat to Kyron is high draft capital. They love him. That's my feeling too. So and you all know I'm all in on Jahmyr Gibbs, but if you're looking at this objectively and you're saying Kyron Williams versus Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams versus Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Great offensive line for Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery. So that to me, and that's honestly the only uncertainty for Jahmyr Gibbs for me right now is the presence of David Montgomery. I do too. I'm with you, Royal Slate. I like Jahmyr Gibbs a poop ton. Thank you, Mr. Scampers, in advance for that one. I'm all in on Gibbs. I love Gibbs. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I think maybe that once we saw how they figured that out, and I want to go back, and I know I've thrown these numbers out before, but when you go back to the month or 5 or 6 weeks after David Montgomery returned from his two game absence, Jahmyr Gibbs was running back 4 and Montgomery was like running back 11 over that time. I mean, they can coexist. They can both get along. I think the only uncertainty that you're dealing with is the week-to-week uncertainty of what the roles are or what the workloads are going to be, because it does shift. I don't think that's going to be the case with Kyron. So I would probably be hoping a lot of times that Kyron Williams goes, the Dempsey picks ahead of me and leaves me Jahmyr Gibbs and no decision. The cop-out. The ultimate cop-out. We do that a lot. I'm with you though. I'm a big Gibbs stan there. There's no doubt about it. But I do think these are the things though that I think are interesting that we start setting the table for these levels of uncertainty. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 0 uncertainty, 0%. Ben Johnson staying, Jared Goff staying, the whole band's back together. And I think, that gives you at least some certainty on Gibbs, at least, what your expectations should be, that there's going to be some degree of splitting. But that he was still really good. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua at the turn. Like Puka Nacua, I feel pretty confident in. I think I just took him in the other draft I'm in. Let's see. I drafted 10th overall. Missed out on Breece Hall by 1. Jeff Erickson took him just ahead of me. And so I got Puka Nacua at 110. Came back around to 2-3 and got Jonathan Taylor. I like that. I like that start. Anyway, I digress. Like I often do. I'm Bob Harris. I digress. That's how this works, people. Deal with it. Came back. So the turn was, I thought, really interesting, though. The Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua. I think that, expecting Garrett Wilson to get 140 targets seems totally reasonable, assuming Aaron Rodgers plays. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, expecting him to get a lot of targets still seems really reasonable. But how bad will that offense be? Will Joe Flacco get the call this year early, just in case? I think so. Jonathan Taylor went at the 2-2. And by the way, Puka Nacua, I mean, I feel like, for me, that he's it, right? He is the new Cooper Kupp. I don't see a huge Cooper Kupp rebound. I don't think Cooper Kupp's leaving. But I mean, I think we've seen the path going forward. Sean McVay has shown it to us. Any thoughts there from Scampers or Dame? I feel like he's set the table, right? You don't have that kind of rookie season without and head into year two without super high expectations. That's not to say, I'm going to be looking for Cooper Kupp. Look, Cooper Kupp was my wide receiver one last year. I know I planted that flag before the injury, and I slow rolled the recovery and let it play out before I saw what I was going to do, and that was probably not to my credit. But I think Cooper Kupp will be a huge value this year. Like, people will overplay that injury, right? People will overplay the numbers this year and the role. And if he's healthy and he goes into next season healthier, like, Puka's going to go ahead. I'd take Puka ahead of him, but I'm going to be looking for that price on the Cooper Kupp. I want to say, where is he on the initial expert consensus rankings on the Fantasy Pros website? Is always a useful thing to look at. Let me bring it up right in front of me, because I do have it right in front of me. Wide receivers, Cooper Kupp. So they have Puka Nacua as wide receiver 8, Garrett Wilson is 7, Brown, Amon Rob, St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill's 1, CeeDee Lamb 2. Cooper Kupp, you got to go down to wide receiver 24. If I can get him as a wide receiver 3 on my team, I would be super pleased with that. Going to the same range as Tank Dell. We'll talk a little about him in this draft. I missed out. I had a decision on that, and it was a close decision. It was a very close decision. Let's talk about that, because we're getting to that point in the draft. Anyway, going through round 2, Keenan Allen, obviously the uncertainty that I talked at the top. Jonathan Taylor, I don't think a ton of uncertainty. I think, the key thing I'm thinking about, or what I'm looking at, is it's a really narrow sample size. But Zach Kruger over at Roto World, one of my former series producers and a great dude, had an interesting stat. Their pass percentage in neutral game scripts was super high, like 67%, fourth highest in the league. 2-game sample, granted, but it'll be interesting. And how big of an impact will that have on Jonathan Taylor? I think in the end, Jonathan Taylor benefits from having Anthony Richardson, right? Keenan Allen, uncertainty. Travis Etienne, not uncertainty, but do we feel confident in Travis Etienne? By the way, Kupp could easily have a Keenan Allen type season or a Cooper Kupp type season. I think that's not outside the range of possible outcomes. Matt Harmon would be proud of me for saying that. And I think drafting him late, that's why I'll be drafting him late for sure. I'll be looking for the value there. So with on Keenan Allen, we'll see what goes on. Travis Etienne, I think the confidence levels in Etienne are just how you feel about Etienne. He seems a little slender, a little slight. To me, doesn't seem like the big body guy that can handle that workload. Last year, he said, "Excuse me, sir, I can handle that workload." With a lousy offensive line, I think the passing attack might be a little more robust this year. I'm hoping if they can get some pass protection and all the pieces stay healthy, but I don't know that for sure. I thought that was going to be the case last year. So I think Etienne, at least in his role, they keep looking for that guy to complement. They're like the Chargers of the other side of the land. Keep looking for that second running back and keep whiffing. Can't quite get it right. Snoop Connor, Tank Bigsby, what a disaster. Tank. DJ Moore, a lot of uncertainty to me. I picked him with my second. Oh, breaking news. Cliff Kingsbury is deciding he does not want to be a coach. That is interesting as hell. So Cliff Kingsbury had been basically all but anointed the Raiders offensive coordinator, and now it seems like he has had a change of heart, which I find very fascinating. I'm going to look at this for a brief moment. Give me a second here. This is interesting news. I'm going to read it just to see if I'm missing something here. There we go. So that's interesting. I see Scampers out here doing his best Matt Harmon impression. Look, I do a Matt Harmon impression almost every chance I get because Matt Harmon's super smart, but this is totally correct. The offensive ecosystem still allow for Nacua and Kupp to thrive, and he would be 100% right. Matt Harmon's super smart, dude. If people don't know him, go out there. Matt Harmon _BYB on your X device. He's a genius dude, man. Love him. Reception perception is one of my favorite things. So yeah, Cliff Kingsbury taking himself out of consideration. So a little more uncertainty for the Raiders, where there's already a lot of uncertainty. We don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know who the running back is. Devontae Adams, right? That's a big issue, right? So, like, was Cliff Kingsbury a great answer? Right? Like, if we go back to the Arizona offense, the offense that didn't use motion, the offense where everyone lined up in the same spot every damn snap, nothing changed or varied. I don't know. I had concerns about this hire, and I kind of almost feel good about this. I almost feel better about it. So we'll see who they get, right? That's obviously ultimately going to be the thing. The Raiders, remember, interviewed Chip Kelly. I know the Los Angeles folks know a little about this. Chip Kelly desperately trying to get the hell out of town. Every college coach desperately trying to get out of every college job for an NFL job because suddenly it's hard to coach in college or understand that whole NIL thing. Crazy. Do I know much about Alex Van Pelt? Like, I had like my immediate thought is he is as a coordinator what he was as a quarterback, journeyman, right? Like, so I don't know. I don't have high expectations for him. I mean, he's been associated with some good offenses. I thought he was, fine associated with Cleveland's offense, but that's not been his offense. That's Kevin Stefanski's offense, and he's been the play caller. So, why didn't he? There was talk about him turning over the play calling. Why didn't he? That's not to say these guys can't come in. UCLA fans eagerly want Chip to go back to the NFL, almost as eagerly as Chip wants to go. He's been mentioned in connection with Washington, the Commanders, as well as Dan Quinn's coordinator. But I think he's interviewed twice with the Raiders, so that might be the fast track for him. Back to Van Pelt. No, there's a lot of uncertainty there for me. I don't, his track record as a play caller has not been phenomenal. From what I've seen, let me see if I can bring up some numbers real quick. If I can, I'll go into them. I might have them here. I sometimes pre-rate things. So here's the book. Van Pelt, experience as an offensive coordinator, helped the Browns to one of the most dominant rushing attacks over the last 3 seasons, but not call the plays. Kevin Stefanski was the primary play caller, but Van Pelt has been in the NFL since 2006 after his quarterback career. Top 5 ground game in the past 3 of the past 4 seasons, could help the Patriots establish a more consistent ground game while also working with a young quarterback. And we'll see who that quarterback is. I think they'll be taking one with that 3rd pick overall. Who's your favorite there, Royal? Who is your pick there? So, like, I want to say fairly nondescript. Eric Romoff, no. Damn right. Damn right. So yes, a lot of, and to Andrea's question on Devontae Adams, there's a lot of uncertainty, but I think it's been baked into the price. Mayor Daniels for the Patriots quarterback, I think that's pretty much how you see the mock drafts. This hour is flying by way too fast, people. I barely made it through 2 rounds. I'm shocked. So let's touch on a couple of situations because there were a couple of players I really wanted to talk about their situations because number one, I love Anthony Richardson. So as I was going in, and Sam Laporte, so Mike Dempsey took, you can see in the Kelsey in the 3rd round, right? Or this, 3rd round. I've got to bring the draft back up. Arr. 3rd round, 10th pick of the 3rd round. I thought that was a little aggressive, but once he opened that floodgate, I took Sam Laporta at 4-5. Came back around. I was sitting there in round 5. I took Alvin Kamara. A lot of uncertainty there, right? In terms of cap. I mean, not uncertainty in what Kamara did because Alvin Kamara was fantastic. Last year. He was running back 3 from weeks 3 to 17, the weeks he was involved, and that was including some injury. Gladys, greetings. Thanks for stopping by. So Alvin Kamara, the uncertainty there comes for the same reason there should be uncertainty for all the pieces there. Their cap situation is a disaster. Could Alvin Kamara get cut? Entirely possible. Derek Carr going to get a new contract that's going to commit them to him for 2 years. We'll see if Clint Kubiak comes in as the offensive coordinator. That seems to be the way it's going, the direction it's heading right now. That would make perfect sense. Get a piece of that San Francisco Shanahan style, tree there. That seems to have borne fruit for others. So totally understandable they'd want to do that. And of course, Gary Kubiak had his own levels of success from the original Shanahan, the Mike Shanahan tree. So I guess we could call all these Mike Shanahan trees. Scampers thought Rashee Rice in the third is aggressive. I agree with that. And Coop is often aggressive. I thought it was too, because we don't know what the levels of uncertainty there for me are high. And that whether they invest draft capital, which hasn't been the road to success for them, Rashee Rice notwithstanding. They do much better with other positions in the draft, Brett Veach says. But especially running backs. I mean, late round running back is his thing. And quarterbacks, they do really well with. Wide receivers haven't not done great with and haven't been great in free agency, but there are some real big name free agents out there. Mike Evans, Michael Pittman Jr., T. Higgins would all be, I think Mike Evans is staying put. But the other two, maybe a fair game. So we'll see. That would make it aggressive. Travis Kelce in the third round opened the door for me for Sam Laporta in round 4. I took Kamara in 5. So that's where it got dicey for me, people. That's where I felt like this draft came off the rails and I wasn't thinking far enough ahead. So I was looking down and I said, okay, Dempsey has his quarterback. He got Lamar Jackson already. So I don't have to, because I know we talk to each other a lot and I like Anthony Richardson. So I thought about taking at 6'5", Anthony Richardson. Thought, well, Burrow's still there. Justin Fields is still there. Justin Herbert is still there. CJ Stroud is still there. I thought, and as you can see, all those guys immediately went off the board. And then Howard Bender took Anthony Richardson. So 2 lessons. Know the room you're in. You're in a room with industry insiders all wanting to look smart. Anthony Richardson's not going to make it to you where you think he is. And also, think about, the opportunity cost. Like, I would have given up Terry McLaurin to take a shot on Anthony Richardson. I think that's a fair exchange. Odds are I could have got Terry McLaurin around later. Right? You look at the players that went in between that and my next pick. Now I got Derrick Henry in round 7, which I think is a great pick and super value wherever he ends up. I think he's going to end up somewhere and he can still play. Right? I love the Laporta pick too. Laporta versus McBride is a 14th round keeper on Wednesday. Ooh. Yeah, it'd be Laporta. Or is McBride the 14th round keeper and Laporta is you got to pick there? Clarify, Royal. I think I'm misunderstanding the question. Because I mean, if it was like totally even, it would be an easy call, but I think it's not totally even. Yeah, that quarterback run was rough. It was rough. And so I really want Anthony Richardson. So I'm gonna be a little more aggressive with him going forward in these drafts. Like, may not have to in the regular best balls when I start jumping in the rooms with everyone else. Maybe that price will drop down a little bit, but I like the lottery ticket. And I probably still would have taken Kirk Cousins where I took him had I taken Richardson where I took him there, if that makes sense. Because if I'm going Richardson, I'm going to need a second quarterback. And that was my plan in this draft, was to get Richardson right around that spot. Howard had other plans, derailed me. Still got Kirk Cousins, who from weeks 1 through 8 was quarterback 4 in fantasy. And I've told myself the happy story, he's going back, but there's a ton of uncertainty there. So much uncertainty because it is January, now February. It was January 31st was that draft, I want to say. What was it? Was it 30? Yeah, it was the 31st. That's the exact date. So, so that's what you do in drafts this time. And so again, here's the cool. I hear the wheels turning out there. Why the hell are you drafting in January? This is the laboratory. This is where you start establishing values. This is where you take the hits in drafts. In drafts where, like what happened to me, if you look down lower, I mentioned this, I had Brock Bowers, the tight end, the rookie tight end on my mind, right? Thought, wow, that'd be a smooth play. And so I just kind of missed on him and I didn't have a plan B because I didn't think anyone would take him. I didn't have a plan B. This is where you make all your plan Bs and Cs and plan Ds so that when you're caught in a moment, you don't make these kind of mistakes or, you don't accident. Friends don't let friends pick Jerry Jeudy. Please, someone help me in the future. I should have taken you're that late in the draft. I should have taken a swing on a high upside guy, like Jalen Hyatt or something. I did that with Wicks because I wanted to make kind of a statement on Wicks. He's kind of a flag plant for me. There are plenty of guys going this final round of the draft. Like Kendre Miller might be a great pick in the 12th round with the uncertainty of Alvin Kamara, right? Or just that cap situation. So either would be 14th round keepers, both were free agent pickups. I would stick with Laporta, but they're right there. I think most of the people I've talked to, Royal, have Laporta as their top, dynasty startup tight end. And McBride right there with him. And I think Cooper, you're right. Andrew Cooper, the tight end whisperer, has them right in that same range, back to back. I think that makes sense. A-Rich and Cousins, Stafford, A-Rod will be my plan. I think that to me is going to be my plan in almost every draft. Anthony Richardson and one of those guys, or someone similar. Like, could Goff sneak in there? Yes, but that's to me is the plan. That's the wrong JJ. That is the wrong JJ. There's no doubt about it. Horrible decision. But yeah, it's late. I'm going Laporta slightly. Just feel a little better about the offense, especially with Ben Johnson back. I know that could be a short term, if this is a dynasty, that could be a 1-year proposal. I'll take that year and hope Dan Campbell figures it out. Maybe starts grooming someone on his staff, knowing this is coming, to take over this scheme and keep it in place. I think they'll stick with Jared Goff. So all those things. I do like the way it's heading in Arizona, though. And but thinking they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. with that 4th pick overall, even though my guy John Lobb likes somebody else better. Even though John Lobb likes somebody else better. You heard me right. John Lobb is a Malik Neighbors guy. The Gridiron Scholar. It's on the radio show last night. You can listen to that on demand. That's the thought. But if Marvin Harrison shows up and Marquise Brown sticks around, he's a free agent. There's some uncertainty there, whether they'll keep him. I like Michael Wilson developing, but he's nowhere on the threat to cut into anyone's targets at this point. So I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know. Do we think Jameson Williams is going to rise up the ranks? I talked a little bit about this on the radio last night. How high are we going? How much are we going to overdraft Jameson Williams this year? And I think in this draft he went in the 8th round. Is that over? I thought that's more than I want to pay. Like, Jameson Williams could turn into a thing. I mean, they drafted him to be a thing. Maybe he finally turns into that thing. I don't want to overpay for him to turn into that thing. We're always thinking, who's going to be the next Gabe Davis, the huge playoff game that turns into to us overdrafting him the next year. Not to pick on Gabe Davis because I think that's easy, but it's just a good example. And maybe Jameson Williams, right? I mean, and like one of those touchdowns was a little bit fluky. It was a run. So I don't know. But I do think the targets, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta and Gibbs. I think those are the 3, right? So I feel pretty comfortable with that. But Trey McBride's target share was insane. Let me give you those numbers, people, because I think it bears taking. This is again from Zach Kruger, who did a great job of wrapping up stats after season. After taking over as the Cardinals' #1 tight end in Week 8, Trey McBride led all tight ends in targets per route run and with a 26.2% target share. His 149.5 fantasy points over that span were trailed only Evan Ingram, who had 160, and David Njoku, who had 159, and also was playing a portion of that with Joe Flacco, who turns out really loves David Njoku more than anybody else, including Deshaun Watson. So interesting. So McBride's there, right? I mean, it's not like a slam dunk decision, I think, is the point I'm making. And a lot of Laporta's run came from touchdowns. So I mean, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. By golly, I have Jameson Williams in my main dynasty league. I'm good everywhere else. I still fear he's a bust candidate. I think that's where probably I am too. Like, how many receivers do you actually cut? Like, I have receivers who don't play anymore, like retired 5 years ago on some of my dynasty rosters. I just can't let them go. I still think 2013 Josh Gordon is going to show up on my doorstep at any point. Anyway, so there's a little discussion of uncertainty, people. Hope it was helpful to you. We'll do this a little more focused next week on the Super Bowl game itself, and discuss some of our thoughts on what's going to happen in that game and how it might play out, who some of the outlier picks are. I'm looking at you, Kadarius Toney. This is like totally going to be a Kadarius Toney game, right? We'll talk that he'll be the punt returner in this one. Nicole Hardman fumble last week. I don't know. I'll have to give this more thought. I hope you give it some more thought too. We'll come back next week. I'll be here Wednesday night with my On the Hot Seat. I'll find us a guest and we'll sit down and chop it up and probably talk about that very Super Bowl game. And I appreciate y'all coming every week. FootballGuys.com is where you'll find my work. My in and out column will be out again next week. I've been doing some instant reactions articles on the head coaching hires this past week, so go check those out if you get a chance. Tons of great content there. I mentioned Kluge's article, Dave Kluge's article on Justin Fields, which is fantastic. Dynasty rankings are up there, all kinds of good stuff. So I appreciate you. Kadarius Toney, 3 touchdowns coming. Appreciate that. Thanks, Royal. Thanks, Gladys. Thanks, Andrea. Appreciate y'all coming. We'll see you here Wednesday night for On the Hot Seat. I'm Bob Harris. Over and out.